Stephen Smith, and I'm with Christian Leadership Partners. We provide leadership solutions for both profit and nonprofit organizations through coaching, teaching, and mentoring with a free 30-day training program that can help your leadership team become more effective. What we want to do is we want to provide you with a look at the kings of Israel and how they perform their jobs. Now, the reason why we would do that is threefold, really. The first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we can see what good leadership looks like and what bad leadership looks like. If I can identify what those traits are and what those characteristics are, then I can model those as a leader myself. So I want to make sure that I'm able to do those things. That's important. The second thing is that we have a historical record of the planning, preparation, and execution phases of everything that these leaders were doing. We can also see results of that planning, preparation, and execution. So if I can see the results of these things, then it will help lead me in a path that will facilitate my ability to be able to become a better leader, because I can see what works and what doesn't work in other lives, and I can apply those same things to the situations that I find myself in. The third thing that we want to do is we want to take a look at servant leadership. And that's what the focus of today is. Today is the first day in our bonus track, and what we want to do is we want to take a look at the servant leadership of Jesus Christ. Now, there's several reasons why we would do this, but I want to give you the definition of servant leadership so that you can see exactly what that means. Servant leadership is a style based on the idea that leaders prioritize serving the greater good. Leaders with this style serve their team and organization first. They don't prioritize their own objectives. Employees in the servant leadership environment are more likely to feel like their voices are heard. So what we want to do is, if we can implement servant leadership in the situations that we're in, then a lot of times this is going to make us more successful. Now, you may have another leadership trait that you feel works better, but I encourage you to take a look at the way that Jesus led. He's probably the most successful leader that we've ever seen. So if we take a look at the way that he led his disciples to start a worldwide movement that is probably the largest religion on earth right now, then what we can do then is start implementing some of his traits, don't you think? So there are 5 things that we're going to focus on over the next 5 days: character, communication, conceptual thinking, commitment to growth, and community. These 5 things are all traits within the servant leadership concept. Now, there's more to it than that, but these traits will get us focused in on what we want to accomplish in these next 5 days. And today what we're going to look at is character. Not only our own character, but the development of the character underneath our subordinates. We want to take a look and see how Jesus did that. So open up a Bible if you've got one, make sure that you're taking notes, and let's take a look and see how that was done. So if you open up your Bible to John 13, 14, and 15, we can see this as a basic understanding of what servant leadership is truly all about and the character development therein. It says, "And since I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I've given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you." So basically what we see here is that what Jesus Christ was doing was he actually took the time to first identify that he was still their leader, that he was still their Lord, that he was still their teacher, but he also showed that he was willing to serve. Not only serve others, but serve his subordinates. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to cater to their wins, but what I am going to do is I'm going to make sure that they're successful by taking care of their needs. I found this to be extremely successful in the U.S. Army. My subordinates understood the concept of what I was trying to do, and they went right along with it, and we were extremely effective in everything that we've ever set our hands to. Now, there are others, like my superiors, who didn't understand what I was doing because it's not the way that they led. And a lot of times you'll run into that, but don't be afraid of that. You can lead in servant leadership, and people will see the effectiveness of what you're doing, and they're going to want to know what you were doing. So we want to make sure that we follow along with that process. Let's look a little bit closer at what Jesus told his disciples there at the Last Supper. So this is John 13, 16, and 17, and it says, "I tell you the truth, slaves are not greater than their master, nor is the message more important than the one who sends the message. Now that you know these things, God will bless you for doing them." So he's going on and he's also telling them, look, you have to understand that even as a subordinate, you're not greater than I am. And if you're a subordinate of somebody, if you're not the head of the organization, then look, you're working for somebody as well. So that's important. That's one thing that we have to understand, that we're going to put the organization first. And remember, that was a part of our definition. Look, servants are not more important than a master, and you're not more important than the organization. Also, we want to make sure that you understand that you're not more important than the message that we're trying to put forward. So we want to make sure that we communicate both of those ideas clearly to our subordinates, and that we understand those as a leader as well. So the next thing that we can do is we can take a look at the way that Jesus taught his disciples. Now we'll go into a greater detail of this when we go into communication, but there's a really important sermon that most people miss as far as character development, and that is the Sermon on the Mount. Now, a lot of people think that it was preached to thousands of people, but the reality is that it says that Jesus gathered his disciples around him and he began to teach. Now, there may have been other people around, but we want to see that this is one of the most important things that Jesus Christ sat down and taught them before he did any of the parables, before he did any healing, before he went out and did any miracles. The first thing that he did was he sat down and he developed their character. So let's take a look at the Sermon on the Mount and the Beatitudes. Now, the Beatitudes will give us this understanding of how we can do this. So this is what Jesus said. He said, now God's going to bless these people who do these things. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that if we're doing these things, it's our own character development. So the first one is that they realize their need for him. For the kingdom of heaven is theirs. So if I understand the need for the organization, then that means that the organization is also going to be a part of me. So I want to make sure that I can understand, first of all, that the needs of the organization are all there to meet the needs of the customers, not just my own needs. But I also want to know that I can work towards those things. The second thing is that if I know that I'm mourning, then I'll also be comforted. So I know that I can be dejected, but I also know that I'm going to be comforted. And I can tell my subordinates that as well. So if they're humble, they will inherit the whole earth. So humility is not false humility, but it's not stepping up and saying, hey, you know what, I know everything, I can do everything, I am everything. And the moment that you have that attitude, you're not going to be able to achieve the full potential of what you're supposed to be. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that people are humble enough so that they can do this, but they have to understand that if they are humble, they're going to inherit the whole earth. He goes on to say that if they hunger and thirst for justice, they'll be satisfied. He says that if they're merciful, they'll be shown mercy. It says that if their hearts are pure, that they will see God. It says that if they work for peace, they will be called children of God. If they're persecuted for doing right, the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And when people mock you and persecute you and lie about you and say all sorts of evil things against you because you're followers, then what we want to do is we want to make sure that we understand that I don't care what other people are going to think about me. I'm going to make sure that I'm focused on these end goals that are all a part of organizational development. So that's what we want to do. We can take a look at these different things and see how Jesus Christ took the Beatitudes. And I really do encourage you to go to Matthew 5, 3 through 11, read through it, and actually take notes on each of these different things and see where you stand in each of those areas. If you feel that you're short in a little bit area, start working on those spots. So in our character development, what we want to do is ask ourselves two key questions. And if I understand these two key questions, then I know that this will help me in my own character development and the development of my subordinates as well. So I encourage you to write these down. Download a copy of the notes below. They're right there. But if you write these down, then your character development is going to be well on the way to succeeding. Now, the first question that I have for you is what are some of the ways that you can develop your character? If I know how to develop my character, then I know that I can actually become better. I can take a look at the Beatitudes and I can make sure that I'm putting those into play in my life. But how do I do that? Do I need to change my attitude, my emotions? How are those things that I need to do relevant in my changing the way that my character is developed? Now, the second question that I have for you is what's your greatest character flaw? And now the reason why I ask you that is because if you know what your greatest character flaw is, that's probably where you want to start. Now, you can ask your superiors. They probably have a pretty good idea what that is. But the people with the greatest knowledge of what your greatest character flaw is your subordinates. So you want to talk to them as well. And don't feel like you're laying yourself out there, laying yourself bare. Believe me, they already know what it is. And they'll respect you even more if you ask them to point it out to you. So take a look at all these things. Equip yourself to be that better leader that you are. And don't forget to subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any more of these studies. And again, I encourage you to go to our website at christianleadershippartners.org. See if there's a tool or a product that will make a difference in your organization.